What if one of the greatest golfers in history never truly belonged to the game he helped redefine? What if the sport's most charismatic showman was also its most silent sufferer? And what if the pain behind the smile was deeper than any gallery could see? He made millions laugh, yet carried sadness no one could see. He won 6 majors, but never full acceptance. Lee Trevino, funny, fierce, and tragically overlooked. This is not just a golf story. This is a story about class, about race, about pain and perseverance. About a boy born into poverty who turned every no into a swing, who went from picking cotton in the fields to picking apart golf legends on the biggest stages in the world. He wasn't supposed to be here. He didn't have the name, the accent, the look, or the invitation, but he showed up anyway. He played anyway. He won anyway. This is the sad truth of Lee Trevino, a man who swung for everyone who never got a chance, a man who, in his own words, was never fully accepted, but never once asked for permission to belong. Lee Buck Trevino was born in 1939 deep in the shadow of Garland, Texas. His world wasn't built on promises. It was built on dirt floors, kerosene lamps, and hope that didn't last through winter. If he had shoes, they were secondhand. If he had dreams, they stayed locked behind sunburnt skin and aching fingers. His father left before his first memory was ever formed. His mother, Maria, worked herself to the bone. But it was his grandfather, a gravedigger, who showed him what real work looked like, day in, day out, digging final resting places for strangers, teaching Lee how to live with dignity when the world offers you none. By the age of 5, Lee was already working in the cotton fields, stooped low under the burning sun, blistered fingers dragging bags heavier than his frame. He wasn't learning math or grammar, he was learning survival. Dreams weren't encouraged in Trevino's world, they were dangerous, because dreaming meant taking your eyes off the next meal. He lasted until 8th grade, longer than many around him, but when the stomach growls louder than the school bell, decisions are made for you. And so, he dropped out. Not out of laziness, not out of failure, but out of necessity. In those days, golf was a kingdom, a world hidden behind manicured hedges guarded by race, class, and custom. For kids like Lee, poor, Mexican-American, uninvited, the only path into that world was through the service entrance. He became a caddy, not because he loved the game, but because it paid. He lugged heavy bags for men who'd never speak his name. He stood silently as they cracked jokes and sank putts, sipping from silver flasks. They never saw him, but Lee saw everything. Every swing, every club choice, every reaction to every bad shot. He didn't go to golf school. He was the golf school. When they left, he stayed. He snuck onto the empty course with a bent club, beat-up balls, and a fire no one could teach. His swing was never traditional. His grip looked wrong. His form, unconventional, but the ball listened. And when he wasn't caddying, he was hustling, betting his lunch money on quick games in dusty lots and makeshift greens. Because for Lee Trevino, golf wasn't a sport. It was a way out. By 17, desperate for something more, he joined the Marines. And even on the military base, golf followed him like a shadow. He hustled soldiers on improvised courses, playing for whatever they could wager, money, cigarettes, even favors. He wasn't just learning the game, he was mastering survival through it. Before he was a PGA legend, Trevino was just a guy trying to win gas money. He played anyone, anywhere, driving across states in beat-up cars with borrowed clubs and borrowed time. Sometimes he had enough money for a motel. Most times he didn't. He played in back-alley tournaments where scores were kept in chalk and ego was the prize. He talked trash, made people laugh, but every game carried weight, because losing meant hunger. And Trevino? He couldn't afford to lose. He bet every dollar in his pocket, because sometimes that's all he had. But the streets have a way of recognizing genius. Word began to spread. There's a Mexican kid with a weird swing, but he doesn't miss. He wasn't just winning, he was dominating. He made golf look fun. He made it fast. He made it loud. And more than anything, he made it accessible. Trevino was a hustler with a heart, a showman with scars, a player who never took the traditional path, because no one ever built him one. Then came the breakthrough. 1968, the US Open. Against every expectation and against the might of Jack Nicklaus, Lee Trevino stunned the world. He didn't stumble into victory, he didn't get lucky, he dominated. Every stroke was a statement, every putt a defiance. For a man who had grown up picking cotton under the scorching Texas sun, for a man who carried the weight of being the outsider on his shoulders, this was supposed to be the moment of triumph, his moment of coronation. But instead, the spotlight flickered, then shifted. Jack Nicklaus, the golden boy of golf, still held the world's affection. Arnold Palmer, the people's champion, remained beloved. And Lee? Lee was still the outsider. Yes, he had a major trophy now. But the glitter of commercial deals, the prestige, the full embrace of a golf world unready to accept a man who spoke with a thick accent, whose background wasn't the privileged turf of country clubs, and who refused to bend to the expected mold. Those things were still out of reach. The world had witnessed his greatness, but it wasn't ready to fully celebrate it. The game that gave and took Lee Trevino's career was legendary. 6 major championships, dozens of tour victories, and an unbreakable spirit that inspired millions. But fate dealt him a cruel hand in 1975. During a tournament in Chicago, amidst a gathering storm, lightning struck. Literally. The bolt tore through his spine like a blazing arrow. The pain was immediate, searing, and deep. What should have been a fleeting moment of nature's fury turned into a lifelong battle. Multiple back surgeries followed. The pain became a relentless shadow, a daily companion he could never shake. He altered his swing, adjusted his stance, and kept playing. But the spark, the fiery joy that had defined him, slowly dimmed. The laughter and jokes he shared on the green were shields, masking an agony few saw. Behind the wide smile was a man fighting a silent war. Behind the jokes was a story of courage and pain. And yet, even in the quiet suffering, Lee Trevino never gave up the game that had given him so much, and taken so much in return. There was one battlefield Trevino never conquered: Augusta National. Not because of the course's difficulty, not because his game faltered. No, Augusta's true challenge was the culture it embodied. Lee Trevino never felt welcome at the Masters. He skipped it more than once, not out of defiance against the course itself, but because of the silent message Augusta sent. Too fancy, he said simply. But beneath those words lay a deeper truth. Augusta National was a place built for men who looked, spoke, and lived a certain way. A world where players from humble backgrounds, where a Mexican-American with a thick Texas accent didn't quite fit in. It was an exclusion disguised as tradition. Years later, the regret settled in like a shadow. "I should have played," Lee admitted, his voice tinged with sorrow. "I let them take that from me." That wound never fully healed. Augusta stood pristine and proud, an icon of golf's history. But for Trevino, it was a stage forever denied, a reminder that even greatness could be sidelined by the invisible barriers of acceptance. Despite a career that most golfers would only dream of, 6 major championships, 29 PGA Tour wins, 2-time Player of the Year, Lee Trevino was never fully embraced by the world of professional golf. Why? Because he wasn't marketable? Or, more accurately, he wasn't moldable. He didn't look like the polished icons of the sport. He didn't speak their polished language. He didn't come from their privileged circles. In a world that worshipped polished perfection and carefully curated images, Trevino was raw, real, unrefined. His rough edges were a reflection of his roots, a hard childhood spent laboring in cotton fields, a voice tinged with a thick Texan accent, a style that broke every convention golf had tried to uphold. For this, he was sidelined from the story he had helped to write with his own hands and heart. While others were celebrated with cover stories and lucrative endorsements, Trevino's victories were footnotes. While others smiled in commercials and posed for glossy ads, Trevino smiled on the course, sometimes the only place where he truly belonged. His legacy, as brilliant as it was overlooked by a sport too hesitant to rewrite its narrative. But Lee Trevino didn't grow bitter. If anything, he grew bigger. He became the sport's most generous ambassador, not through endorsements or flashy headlines, but through kindness, humility, and relentless spirit. He joked, not to deflect pain or prejudice, but to build bridges. He signed autographs long after the cameras left because he never forgot what it felt like to be invisible. He mentored young Latino golfers, not for recognition or applause, but because someone had to. Someone had to open doors that had been slammed shut for decades. Lee Trevino understood that behind every wide smile was a story of pain. Behind every laugh was a silent battle fought in private. And he made sure that his pain, his struggles, his battles weren't just his alone. He used them to pave roads for others. Because greatness isn't just about winning trophies. It's about lifting others up when the world tries to keep you down.
Today, Lee Trevino's legacy lives on, though not in billion-dollar sponsorship deals or in the gleam of corporate logos. His true legacy lives in the hearts of those who once felt unseen, unheard, and uninvited. Trevino didn't just play the game of golf, he reshaped it. He cracked open a door that had long been bolted shut, and he never let it close again. He showed the world that greatness doesn't need the pristine lawns of exclusive country clubs or polished resumes. Sometimes greatness grows from cotton fields. Sometimes greatness walks with a limp, fights chronic pain, and speaks 2 languages. Greatness is the spirit to rise again and again, despite the odds. Lee Trevino is not just a champion of golf. He is the people's champion, a symbol of resilience, pride, and breaking barriers. His story reminds us all, where you come from doesn't determine how far you can go. 11th conclusion: the sad truth. The sad truth of Lee Trevino isn't that he was poor, or in pain, or mocked. It's that he gave everything to a sport, and the sport never gave all the love back. But maybe that's why he played with such passion. He played for those never picked first, for the misfits, the outsiders, the forgotten. And every time he stepped onto that green, they were right there with him. If Trevino's story moved you, if it made you see the game and life a little differently, then don't let his legacy fade away. Share this story. Celebrate the underdogs. And remember, greatness isn't about fitting in, but about breaking through. So what door will you open today? If you found this inspiring, please like, share, and leave a comment below. Tell us your thoughts or who else you think deserves the spotlight. Let's keep the conversation alive.